Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jim. It's an honor to be here. My wife and I live in the southern part of the Miami Valley District, just south of Centerville, and started the morning and worshipped at Webster, and then stopping by in Sylvia, and then the next stop is down in Ithaca. They're talking about federation versus disaffiliation. I thought, well, that would be a change of pace. Federation is when a United Methodist church wants to join with a Lutheran church and start a new church. I've only been on the job 6 months. We're bringing in the assistant to the bishop for this one. I think that's something what I'm doing, which I've done. But anyway, I'm so glad to be here. I find it fascinating that your chair of the trustees is 24 years old. Now that speaks volumes. I didn't know nothing else. That might be the youngest trustee chair in this annual conference. So that is something to celebrate and be happy about. And also this brother right over here, he threw me off this morning because I came and thought, man, I don't want to walk in. My fear was I'm going to open the door and you're going to be like in the front of the sanctuary, and I was like, oh. So I thought, okay, this hallway is dark. I'm going to slide through here. I came down and I peeked in. All I could see was him in a chair. And I thought, okay, he's in the front row. So I guess he was in the back row. So anyway, I'm here to help you understand the whole process of disaffiliation. I want to say on the front end, I'm not here to talk you into it. I'm not here to talk you out of it. You were answering questions, and I know we'll go right through it. Let me kind of explain where we're at. For decades, the United Methodist Church has struggled with the understanding of human sexuality. And right now, today, the United Methodist Church says that homosexuality is incompatible with Scripture, and self-avowed, practicing homosexuals cannot be ordained as a pastor. That is what we believe. Okay, that is in the book. Now, I know that just by the mere nature of my title now as a superintendent, I've been called a liar, can't trust me, blah, 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 blah. You know what? I serve from some of the smallest to one of the largest United Methodist churches in the state of Congress, 35 years. I miss the local church so much. But you know what? I left my ego at my last church in Westerville. So, and I've been called everything already. So I'll just help you, if you think I'm lying, how to do your own fact check. Okay? So you can go to the Book of Discipline, and you can look it up yourself, what the Book of Discipline says. The Book of Discipline changes every 4 years. The only time the United Methodist Church speaks is at the General Conference, not Lakeside Annual Conference. General Conference, worldwide, every 4 years. And then what they say is put in that book called the Book of Discipline. In between general conferences, there's a whole lot of United Methodists that want to run their mouth. And they'll say this and they'll say that. There's some extremely liberal people that say and do things that just shock us. At the same time, there's some very, very radical conservatives that do things that they, oh, I consider myself conservative, but I don't know if I'm going to go pull snakes out of a basket or something, you know, whatever. So, you know, we are a dual denomination. You got to focus that our denomination speaks once every 4 years. The good old code has knocked the rails off the train off the rails and so forth. So we're trying to get that meeting to speak once again. What's happened is that a temporary paragraph was put in the Book of Discipline, paragraph 2553. It doesn't make any sense to you and me right now, and it's so, but for what it's worth, paragraph 2553 says, any United Methodist church that wants to disaffiliate, sever their tie with the United Methodist Church, they can do that through the December of this year, 2023. Then they said every annual conference can determine what that process is. So before you want to beat up our bishop, he's a God-fearing, Christ-centered man. He is gracious enough to say for West Ohio, we'll give everybody 3 windows to disaffiliate. The first window was last November. The next window is June. The third window is probably October or November of this year. The reason the windows of opportunity close at the end of 2023 is that the book is going to get open again in 2024, and then they'll address it, how to go forward in it. So there'll probably be opportunities in 2024 and beyond. There's opportunities to quit being out of Methodist Church before this special prayer group. But if it's on the issue of homosexuality, our bishop has said, here's 3 windows. Other annual conferences, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. There is no disaffiliation being done. So our bishop has heard the people, and he's allowed this process to unfold. But one of the advantages we have today is that we've seen round 1 out of 960 churches, around exactly 80 disaffiliated. Of those 80, 19 came from our district, the Miami Valley district. I presided in all 19. There are more churches disaffiliated in our district than any place in the state of Ohio, which means I've done this talk more than anybody in the state of Ohio. So, if you want to disaffiliate, there's a process, and your first step is to say, we feel like we want to go down the path of disaffiliation, so you put that in writing. Then you're going to get an email to answer 3 questions. What did you do to discern as a congregation? We're not going to tell you how to discern. You'll figure that out yourself. In other words, you just can't have one person in the church going being crazy. Hey, we might quit. No, you have to have a process of discernment. So question number 1 is, what do we do to discern? Question number 2, what do we learn? We learned that nobody wants to disaffiliate, or maybe everybody does. Then the third question is, what did you talk about? What happens to the people in this church that don't want to disaffiliate? If the church does, what are you going to do? So you can say, we're going to tell them to go to Greenville, go to Webster, go to Mercedes. So it's simple questions. So there's nothing in this system to slow it down, to trick you. That's how it starts. You send a letter saying, we're going to consider disaffiliation. And then you answer those 3 questions. Once that happens, then I come out and explain this. To get your church conference vote, you got to have 6 things that are done. And I go over those 6 steps. Because at the church conference, all the members of the church have a vote. There's no mail-in votes. There's no drive-by votes. There's no absentee voting. There's no harvesting of the vote in nursing homes. You have to be physically present to vote. If you need a vote from a nursing home to disaffiliate, you should be disaffiliated. I would hope to God you love your church more than that. It will absolutely destroy you if you're down to a 1 or 2 vote difference. Either you want to do it or you don't. So all 19 of my votes in this district almost went unanimous. 198 to 1, 30 to 3, 63 to 3. It wasn't even close. Because people had done the discernment and they knew their church wanted out. And so it wasn't down to, oh, we need to get this one, we need to get that. So that church conference, for us to schedule that date, we would have to do 6 things. Need to send me a list of your membership, just the names. I don't need addresses and phone numbers and everything. Because that night of the church vote, we want it to be total, transparent, full of integrity. Either your name is on the sheet or it's not. There's that one meeting. I was at church Sunday. I just put a check in the offering plate. You're telling me I can't vote. Yeah. I see somebody had dropped the ball before the church conference ever met. So either your name's on the list or it's not. We don't need everybody around Ansonia saying, oh, right here, Ansonia, quick, you know, this church, they had dead people voting, they had Baptists voting, even a couple Catholics voting. No, we love the church. And if you're going to disaffiliate, at least what we do is position you for the best New Start ministry that you can have. So that's why we want that. Number two is we would ask for parcel numbers of all the property that you own. Oh, so you're after our property. No, we're not after the property. We want the parcel numbers, and at your expense, you have to do a title search. Because when we vote at the church conference, we got to make sure there's no reverter clauses. A reverter clause might be something like, if a Sunday United Methodist Church ever stops being a United Methodist Church, all the property reverts back to blah, blah, blah. 99% chance we don't have that. But once again, no matter that vote, we want to be 100% sure. We don't want people saying, well, we voted to disaffiliate if we knew it was going to lose everything we had. There's a church down south, I think in Alabama, if it stops being a Methodist church, everything that the church owns reverts to white people only. Exactly. I mean, we're talking about 150, 200-year-old congregations that who knows what's in these deeds. Here in the Miami Valley District, great. It's just outside Cooper Heights. If it stops being a United Methodist Church, it reverts to the largest church, any denomination in the little town of Grant. Who cares about Grant? Well, that church owns 90 acres of real estate in Miami County. You know, you got to be pretty, pretty careful. Richmond property down around Zena has a reverter clause. If it stops being United Methodist, it reverts to the Anderson Trust. So that's why we want the parcel numbers for you to do the title search, because this is a severing of the United Methodist Church. And we're in a legal hand now. Another thing that comes up is membership, parcel numbers. Next thing would be a list of your, do you have any permanently restricted gifts? We're not talking about the general fund, we're not talking about the youth fund, we're not talking about the federal fund. This stage, Aunt Daisy donated $50,000 to Ansonia United Methodist Church, and you never spend $50,000. The interest goes to help children's ministry or something. And if it ever stops being a United Methodist Church, Aunt Daisy said, "This is what I want done with that $50,000." That just happened in Washington. Okay, so we have to check that. And then another thing is, do you have at least any debt? Because if you disaffiliate, you're taking that debt with you. You can't disaffiliate and leave the debt with the conference. So that's not fair. The fifth thing is the name of the person that's going to represent you, because God bless you all, nice people, but I can't be dealing with 55 people from Ansonia. There'll be one person that all the communication goes to. And then the sixth thing is the name of your church. If you disaffiliate, you cannot be called Ansonia United Methodist Church. I don't know why you want to do that, because you're disaffiliated. You can call yourself, you can use the word United, you can use the word Methodist, but you can't use both. So, our friends in Greenville Evangelical United Methodist, Greenville EUM, they voted to disaffiliate. Their vote was 198 to 1. Their exit fee was $640,000. You know what the new name of the church was? Greenville EUM. I said, you can't do that. They said, the letters are not copyrighted. Okay, our new name is Greenville Everyone United in Ministry. Okay, so there's some bad companies, public information, they decided to disaffiliate, and they gave the conference over $500,000. And they're still called Greenville EUM. Same pastor, same church, same everything. The only thing difference is they're out $500,000. I was in one of these meetings, and this one lady raised her hand. She said, "This makes no sense." I said, "Thank you, ma'am." I said, "That's about the only thing that makes sense, because it's confusing. Those 19 churches that disaffiliated did so because they speculate what's going to happen the next time the book's over, the book of discipline. They're speculating that in 2024, the language will change. I'm here to tell you, you can look at the book of discipline yourself. I've already said what the United Methodist position is. But for whatever reason, people are saying, you know what, we're getting out before they change the rules. Okay? Now, another advantage we have is I can give you the names and addresses of the 19 churches in our district. Today was the second Sunday because disaffiliation became effective 12/31. So they had January 1 and January 8th. Call any of those 19 churches and see what's happened once they disaffiliated. Still doing church. If you think, well, we'll finally own our property, not true. You already own Ansonia United Methodist Church. This is where somebody usually shouts out, liar! So say the other. If you don't believe me, you go to the courthouse, look up the deed on this property, and see if it's in Joe Wilson's name. See if it's in the Western Iowa Conference's name. It is not true. This property is in the name of Ansonia United Methodist Church. Fact check it yourself. Okay? Here's the catch. There's a trust clause on that deed. You own this building. It always has been your building. But we can go back to John Wesley's time, where we wanted to protect the assets of the church. So the trust clause works this way. If you want to build onto this church, you got to ask permission, even though it's yours. Why? You've got a wonderful pastor, but you know full well there's some clowns out there. You get Slick Billy coming in here in Ansonia saying, we need to build ourselves a $50 million addition. Well, we might be able to buy Ansonia for $50 million. I mean, God bless Ansonia. I'm being a little sarcastic here, but why would Ansonia put on a $50 million addition? That doesn't quite make sense. So because that trust clause is on there, it's like, slow down, brother. When you get $25 million raised, maybe it's time for the $50 million addition. Or a young family comes in and they're just the cat's meat out. They volunteer for everything. Oh man, we're young people, and this one here is just really working their breaking their tail off, and they want to take a line of credit out on the church. No, the trust clause will prevent somebody taking a line of credit on the church and making you go bankrupt. So the trust clause is there for your protection, especially, let's say that Ansonia goes belly up, there's nobody left. You own the church, but there's nobody in this room. Who gets the church? The last one here? The one that joined a dying church 1 week before it closed, and they get all this property? That's not fair. The trust clause empowers me as your superintendent, where I step in and I shoot off the buzzards. The church is dead. Everybody's gone. If you're dead, it's in your memory. If you're alive, it's in your honor. But you're not here. Everybody's gone. It's just me. The trust clause empowers me to step in to liquidate the assets. I'm going to give the tables to Webster. I'm going to give the chairs to Union City Community. I'll do whatever I can to disperse it to United Methodist Spaces. I'll sell the building. If I make any money, I'll invest that in Christian ministry in your memory and in your honor, so that the last person standing doesn't get it all and then go to the Caribbean. What's the alternative? So, once again, ask one of those 19 churches, how many of them have to buy their church back once they disaffiliate? Absolutely zero. If you want to fact check them, ask them if they say, oh yeah, you have to buy it back. Really? Show me the real estate closing document. It ain't there. It's a lie. You own this church. The trust clause is on there. If you disaffiliate, What it really comes down to, disaffiliation means you're saying, we want to take the trust clause off of this property. And all 19 of those votes, I told them, I'm sitting to you as a brother in faith. Somebody better put their hands on the wheel here and protect the asset. You're on your own now, you're disaffiliated, I'm not your superintendent, I've been voted off the item. But somebody has to be protective of the assets. You guys are all seasoned enough. You've seen some church families come, some church families go. You come in there one day, big shot, run the whole place, and take it to the cleaners. The trust clause protects and so. So the final thing is, and I'll open it for questions here. There's a fee involved. And I do it, and conference people are after our money. No. This is the why behind the what. There's 3 parts to the exit fee. Part number 1, any grants that you got for $20,000 or more since 2017, you have to repay. That amount would be for Ansonia, 0. You haven't got a $20,000 grant, have you? I'm still looking at the church that get the $20,000 grants. I'm thinking, how will that happen? So that's 0. The rationale is, if you've got a grant for $20,000 to paint this fellowship hall, and then cut bait and go on your own, that's not fair. There's a whole lot of us that's United Methodist, through our apportionments, enables various grants for a variety of reasons. And then that won't happen. Part number 2 would be whatever your apportionments are, times it by 2. Minus what you paid in the last 12 months. So 2 years worth of apportionments, minus what you paid in the last year. The rationale behind that is, whether you like it or not, we are in covenant as United Methodists. And every year we go to Lakeside, or virtual. This year we're going to Ottawa right now. But we go to the annual conference. You had a vote, and your pastor had a vote. So whether they voted for the conference budget or not, that's neither here nor there. But you can't have a say on the vote, on the conference budget, and then cut bait. So this made more sense before the turn of the year, but like last fall, we were in the middle of the 2022 budget. The 2023 budget's already paid. So I guess if you're anticipating this year, you're paying for the 2023 budget, and we'll soon be adopting the 2024 budget. So the rationale behind it is, it gives the annual conference time to right-size its new reality. Because those of us that are staying, we're not going to get stuck with 100% of the bill. So if you're going to leave, you're going to leave paying for what you had a right to vote on, which would be 2 years worth of a budget. Third and final thing would be the unfunded pension liability. And you've got a lot of pastors. Some you like better than others. But whether you like those pastors or not, we promise them a pension, and they're surviving widowers. So if 15% of the churches in this annual conference quit, we still have 100% of that pension liability. So in Columbus, they're not making up some artificial number to stick it to Ansonia. The pension company is called Westpath. Westpath has these algorithms and data and all this other fancy stuff. They can predict what the unfunded pension liability is for West Ohio. We get that number from them, and then we divvy that up based on the apportionment formula, which means that big churches are going to pay more, the small churches are going to pay less. So we divide that up, so you pay the unfunded pension liability. If you want that number to go down, this is how you pray. You pray for the Federal Reserve to keep raising the interest rate on our credit cards. Because the higher the Federal Reserve raises the interest rate, the lower the unfunded pension liability, for some weird reason that I don't understand. Right now, it's going to be right about 2 to 2. You take your apportionment and you can times it by probably 2.4 as an estimate. So in a nutshell, whatever your apportionments are times 4, that's what we would rate. So there's nothing punitive in here. There's nothing, this is how much money you got to pay to buy your church back. Only thing you're paying is what you voted on, yea or nay, on the conference budget, and then do your share before you quit on the pension liability, so it doesn't cripple the rest of us that are staying behind about this till the Lord returns. Let me stop. Just confused. It's confused. It really makes no sense. If you want me to take off the DS Act and just speak to you as a normal, regular person, you're wasting your money. Because that's your decision. But somebody's eventually today is going to say, well, if we don't disaffiliate, they're going to send us a gay pastor. It's like, Lord have mercy. Number one, I can tell you, you're not going to get a gay pastor. How can you say that? There's not enough gay pastors to go around. All right? So, even if you want to, you're not going to get one. I know about 3 or 4, well, out of 960 churches, who do you want as a pastor? As your superintendent, I want to send you a pastor that you tell me you want. This church, every church, puts together a profile. And this is your staff parish chair. He leads the committee. And, they're going to say in that profile, this is who we want. Well, then we're stuck with the person. No, you're not. Let's say that you want A, B, and C, and I send you X, Y, and Z. Say no. We're not allowed to do that. I've been on 6 months, and it happens everywhere. There's a church in the Count Area North District. We want A, B, C, and D in our pastor. So Ted Bias and DS brought them a person with all those qualities. When they met the pastor, they said, no way, she's a woman. Wow. So he said, okay, when we find somebody with A, B, C, and D that's a man, we'll bring it to you. They're still sitting waiting for a pastor. Right now, there's more churches than pastors. So some churches don't want white pastors, some don't want black pastors, some don't want Korean pastors, some don't want women pastors, some don't want men pastors. For me, I want a kid that believes in Jesus. Knows great light from dark on the Bible, and leads the church forth in mission. So, well, we still don't have any power, really. You ask the Rev here, when you get your paycheck, do you know who signs that check? Somebody here does. Who signs the paycheck?
Yeah.
You have a company. But somebody else. So it's all. And that's what the power's at. That's what the power. If you don't like the pastor I send you, and I still force that pastor on you, don't pay him. They won't show up. You got as long as you got the checkbook. Now, I know we're being videotaped and I'm in trouble for saying that, but you know what? I don't care. I love the church. And my job as a superintendent is to make sure you got the best pastor I can find for in Soutgate United Methodist Church. That's my job. Yes.
So why did the bishop put this temporary paragraph out there to make it seem like this was something we had to do? A decision we had to make.
Yeah. The general conference did that paragraph 2553. And then everybody just goes, listen, we want to use 2553, we want to use 2553. And it's just this crowd, it's like a frenzy. Like last fall, there were people saying, you got to do the first window because the bishop is going to close windows 2 and 3. He's the one that made the windows. Other bishops aren't even providing windows. Down in North Georgia, they said, wait a minute, time out, we're shutting the whole thing down. So across the denomination, it's chaos. Chaos. So he did it out of compassion. He heard the people. A lot of people were determined to leave. About half of them, maybe, I don't have the statistics on it, but from what I can guess, about half joined what's called the Global Methodist Church. I think the other half, they want to go do their own thing. That's dangerous. as a slippery slope, and in my opinion, I was going to take the hat off on that one, but I know in the first 6 months I've saved 3 preachers their jobs already. Not that I'm in the business of saving preachers' jobs. The preacher does something stupid, I'm going to be on the fight. I'm going to protect the church. If the church is right, the preacher's right, we're going to figure that out. But there's the benefit of having a superintendent come in and say, hold on now. So, crazy, yeah.
Before 2553, the same, this affiliation process, is it the same? For all practical purposes, the same 6 things and the same requirements?
Those 6 things I mentioned, that's Western Ohio's version of implementing 2553.
Okay, well, how about the 3 parts that exit? Was it all the same for 2553?
No, I think that there's a paragraph in there, 2548, and I'm real versed on that. It's that was before this whole mess started. There was a way for churches to cut bait, had nothing to do with homosexuality. I'm not too versed on that. 2553 was put in as a temporary thing to get us from the COVID chaos to the next general conference. The next general conference may come up with a new paragraph and say, okay, this is how everybody's going to disaffiliate. Life costs more, life costs less. And all these churches, they know what's going to happen in 2024. Really? This is how messed up churches. We act like we know what's going to happen in 2024. That they're just going to go radical liberal. Really? We don't even know what year it's going to be in 2024. If you're not confused yet, this will get you confused. In 2024, are we having the General Conference 2020 or the General Conference 2024? 2020 got postponed because of COVID. Is that bumped to 2024? Or are we saying 2020 is over? It's the 2024 General Conference. What difference does it make? In 2020, we already had the delegates elected to go to the General Conference. If it's 2020, those delegates can go to 2024. If 2020 is over, this May and June at Otterbein in our annual conference, we have to elect a whole new slate of people who represent us in 2024. So we don't even know who the voters are going to be in 2024, but yet we don't know how they want to vote. That's stupid. But people are ramped up, especially in this geographic area. I said, I look at my map, and I put a little sticker on every disaffiliated church. I knew I was coming to insult you before you ever called me. Because not all, but many churches in Preble, Dark, and Shelby County, they're ramped up. And now we're getting to the point of getting real aggravated. It's almost like people are getting targeted and recruited and prodded. I call it the Bob Evans effect. Round 1, it was purging, getting the churches out, lock, stock, and barrel. 19 churches, 24 pastors, 0. 0 of those 24 pastors stayed in the United Methodist Church. Shame, in my opinion. They had to do what they had to do. Round 2, it's a Bob Evans effect. We're out of Bob Evans. Our church quit. Your church quit. No one quit about it. I don't know. We better quit before they change the rules. Why change the rules? We don't know. Just need to quit. Really? So then the churches then go to their pastor. Why aren't we talking about quitting? Everybody else in America is quitting. No, so we don't know what we're talking about. So, once again, I'm not here to talk you into it or out of it, but you got to do some deep soul searching if you want to go forward with it. It takes 2/3 of the vote. 2/3 in favor, 1/3. It has to be at least 2/3 in favor to do it. Not in our district, but down around and down in Cincinnati, there's a couple of churches down there where it was a split vote. It was like 64, 65% in favor. So you had 65% of the people wanting to quit, but they couldn't quit because they didn't get that 2/3 threshold. You don't want to go there. Yeah, that is very devastating for the church.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So, for the 2020 conference, was there proposal to make changes to the book of discipline? And what, do you know what that said? And would that likely be the forward?
Yeah, I think we can be for sure, there'll be proposals in 2024 to make homosexuality okay. There'll be proposals put forth to say that it's not okay. So, you know, it will definitely be a topic in 2024 on both sides. Yes.
Like other churches going through this, not just the Methodist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like this meeting this afternoon, we got Ithaca with the Lutherans. They did it 10 years ago. And I met with their kind of big young people about yada, yada, yada. And they could almost describe exactly what I was going through. It was weird. So they're 10 years down the road and we're still recovering. But Episcopalians did, Presbyterians, Lutherans. Yeah.
We have to answer to God, He's the ultimate. Why is the Methodist Church going more worldly than godly? And I don't want to be in a church that doesn't follow God. If they want to go and do homosexuality, that's not what God wants in the Bible. Why is the Methodist Church going the more worldly way?
And right now, the United Methodist Church said it's wrong.
But they're trying to change it to make it say it's okay.
Some are trying to fight to keep it the same. Right? I mean, that's just the God honest truth. A whole lot of attention is on those that are trying to say that it's right. But my prayer is that somehow somebody rises up in our denomination and says, this is a big tent. And Sonia has the right to say, this is what we believe as United Methodist. And the Sonia United Methodist Church in San Francisco or New York City or Chicago could figure out their thing. Because it's a split house. It is a split house. I know those that feel that it's wrong has a tough time figuring out how can anybody read the Bible and say that it's right. But I can fill the room up with people that can use the same Bible and take verses and say, this is why we think it's right. I know that's shocking, but that's where we're at today. Yeah.
So, how long is the bishop change up? How is that?
Yeah, our bishops are appointed 4 years at a time. And the most a bishop can ever stay in any circumstance is 12 years. So based on that, we know 100% sure that Bishop Homer will be with us through, let's see, September of 2024, we would have a new bishop. Yes?
I know you're speaking to the fact that we don't really know what's going to happen in 2022 or 2024. But in picking up on some of the commentary that's been going on the internet that we can pick up, it appears as though the church is already ordaining 3 homosexual bishops, plus reinstituting the one who God said was the first out of California. So it almost seems like, yes, we don't know what's coming, but if there's any way of reading the handwriting on the wall, it seems that the conference that the church is already moving in a direction towards homosexual bishops, even in the hierarchy of the church.
Right. There was a homosexual bishop elected, but there was also a lot of heterosexual bishops elected. You go down around the southeastern jurisdiction, Alabama, Louisiana, North Carolina, there's some hardcore conservative bishops that were elected.
Whatever.
Yeah. That's a good question. I can ask that a lot. If I had an answer to that, I don't even think like it, but Yeah, I know, and all I can do on that, because the question was, why are we enforcing the book of discipline? There's rules that says it's wrong, and we allow it, why are we doing that? Where I'm at personally, I'm not really have an answer, just an answer, but I grew up in Southeast Ohio. I'm driving a black pickup truck. I always take my dog with me. My dog, he took the morning off, something like that. I'm a conservative person. I'm standing in the United Methodist Church, and I want the word to make it how I feel it should be. And that there is no perfect denomination. It's one of the things we have to wrestle with as United Methodists, is how do we enforce our rules. Irregardless of whether we like the rules or not, the rules have to be followed. But just Cincinnati Methodist, they're getting there on the rules right now too. You haven't followed that whole thing. They canceled that meeting last week on this guy with heart attack and everything. But now the fallout of that, the rules of the NFL says, yada, and they change the rules on the papers as far as who gets on the advantage. And they're saying, wait a minute, the rules are, if during the season we do this and this and this, we get in big trouble. Now, at the end of the season, the rule makers are changing the rules. So, the reason I use that example is that throughout almost all aspects of our life right now, it's a matter of rules not being followed, being changed. And what can we do as Christian brothers and sisters? Do we say, you know what, we're going to step aside and do our own or join another denomination? Or do we stay in this beloved denomination that we put our heart and soul into to help make it where we make God calls it to be? For me personally, I'm staying. Another question I get a lot is, oh, if we stay, we'll have to do same-gender weddings. Not true, not true, not true. Pastors right now are licensed by the state of Ohio to perform weddings. And for 35, this is my 36th year, it's always been my decision whether I marry somebody or not. Heterosexual. So I've had the right to say, no, I'm not marrying a couple, I'm going to marry a couple. I'm not allowed to do a same-gender wedding as United Methodist. But even if that rule changed, I would still have the right to say, I'm doing that wedding, I'm not doing that wedding. So the pastor is one licensed by the state of Ohio to legally officiate a wedding. So it's the pastor's decision. It goes back to your profile. We want a pastor who will do these types of weddings. Okay, then figure out what this type is. So if you say, we do not want a pastor that will do same-gender weddings, that becomes part of the profile. And if they do, then you call me, we have to come to Jesus meetings and hey, man, you said you wasn't going to do it, now you are, and this church isn't comfortable with that. We got to find a new church that feels that is okay.
So we have the same respect for the church. I mean, if we would stay and things would change, and if it's okay, then if we would say, no, they can't get married here, but can they use our facility, and we don't want them to use our facility, would we be sued because of not allowing them to use our facility to get those things done?
And in my opinion, you have this say on what happens in this church. Right now, I would hope you have some type of facility usage or process, or you have some control of who uses the building. So that shouldn't change. And if it does, we have a whole another round of meetings. Right now, I guess what I want to stress is, you own the building, you're making the decisions, you create the profile, you're saying what type of pastor you want. My job as a superintendent is to try to connect the dots, advocate for you, protect you, be thankful you know Steve. I want to change it because we had a meeting, a conversation beforehand. I know that you don't always see the superintendent. And part of my goal is to change that. That I'm here on, I'm scheduled for your 150th anniversary to preach first Sunday of July 3rd. Anyway, we need to do more of that. Versus you only see me when there's a problem or a pastoral change. I told the bishop on the cabinet meeting last week, I said, Bishop, I said, back in bed, what goes to my mind is we reap what we sow. We reap what we sow. And for years, we have been, there's more that could have been done in the past to prevent the chaos of the day. 35 years, I focused on my church. I didn't care about insomnia. I focused on church and Messiah. 12 years, $1.5 million budget. 2,800 members, and preaching 5 times a week. I could have cared less about Ansonia, Webster, Greenville, you name it. And now I realize I was wrong. Because I'm in a covenant community. And my ministry should be bigger than a particular church. We're all in this together. And if you're saying, we don't care about all those churches, we're just concerned about Ansonia, there's a bigger picture. So, it's complicated. I don't know what the answer is, but I know we're all going to heaven. We all believe in the same Jesus. I said at one meeting, this is not true. We're not all children of God. And I said, we're going to put on the Bible. You got to have both feet on the Bible. Okay? Both feet on the Bible. I said, yeah. Pounding their cars, screaming, jumping out of their chair like this. Church meetings. I was told I would be shocked at this job. Now, anybody with any common sense knows if you're having church meetings and people are jumping up with their fist raised, calling you liars, you're not going to heaven, and it just spirals in there. There's nothing deeper. It's not about being sexuality, totally. It's more of, you know what, nobody cares about it. I was at a meeting when you said that. He said, let's just be honest. Nobody cares about us. We haven't seen a DS here ever. Unless there's a preacher change. And we're tired of paying the tax. I said, be careful saying that. But I said, also, I want to commend you for being honest. So we've done a poor job. You're not paying the tax in your abortions. I think we have failed to describe to our churches what good we're doing with abortions. There's a lot of lies we would change, but we never talk about it. So, anyway, you've already had one sermon today. I'll hold it back. But maybe it's hard not preaching on Sunday. Yes, sir.
Many of the churches that discipline themselves, if you define these facts, can you get back into the United Methodist?
Absolutely. Yeah. Question was, churches that disaffiliated, is there a path to come back in? And Bishop Palmer made a good point in a meeting a couple months ago. He said there's always been a path for non-United Methodist churches to become United Methodist. There's always a path for clergy of other denominations to become United Methodist. And that's already spelled out in the book of discipline. I think I better brush up on that. Sarcastically, I've been saying, if we want to be ahead of the curve, we ought to start a task force in this annual conference for re-affiliation, because it's coming. Some of these churches, you guys don't know what they're doing. I'm at Rossburg. Rossburg used to be with this church, right? Right before your vote happened, this elderly gentleman says, "Can you get us a preacher on January 1? Hello? I said, you're just ready to vote on disaffiliation. I'm out of the loop. It's not my job to get your pastor on January 1 because they were disaffiliating, and their pastor who led them in that process was retired. No. So if you're asking me who your pastor is going to be January 1, minutes before you disaffiliate, I'm wondering if everybody understands disaffiliation. So,
is there major changes in this disaffiliation process, you know, pre-COVID and now and looking forward, or these windows, just a threat that they're going to change the process?
Yeah, it's a temporary stopgap measure, and Bishop just came up with 3, he could came up with 2, he could came up with 7, but just kind of staggering it out. 80 proved to be a lot, just manually, the manpower to process all these papers and processes. I'm glad he did that versus there's one day everybody in, everybody out. So it's just kind of he looked at that span of time left until 2553 expires, because it was a temporary measure. You just kind of spread it out.
So hasn't that process always been available for like the last 20 years, and going forward, that process will be available? It's just all the rules of that process, right?
The process prior to 2553 is different. And the fear of what it's going to be like at the beginning of next year, that's what's driving the frenzy. Right now, there's 28. I had 19 the first round. I got 28 the second round. So if there's 28, that means there's 56 meetings that are there. Now that's 2 months, 7 days a week. If the deadline is June 30th for round 2, most likely we're going to have everything in by April 30th for the last church conference, because it will take about 2 months to get all of the title searches done and the payment and notarizing the signatures, and it's a hot mess. But it's there. If you do decide to do that, my job is to walk with you. I'm not going to be judgmental. I think the other 19 can testify that it remains civil, professional, and I said that. The last thing I can do as your superintendent is to position you the best I can. And for that, there's a sense of peace in that church conference meeting. I think it was a great piece if we don't, but that's going to be your call. All right. Well, thank you so much for lunch. So, now I'll be back. So, any more questions? One more call? All right, thank you guys. And follow your heart. The good word will guide you. You'll figure this out. You're not the only church wrestling with this. You know what I want you to do. I want you to stay United Methodist. I need a United Methodist presence in Dark County. And if you quit, everybody else quits. I'm not giving up on Dark County. There will be a United Methodist church in Dark County. I would love for you to be in a United Methodist church. But if you leave, that doesn't mean I'm leaving. People in this county, they need the love of Jesus. And I think the United Methodist Church has a very unique way of sharing the gospel. So, if you stay, you got some good days ahead of us. So, all right, thank you guys. So I was feeling your pastor reminds me to pray before we go. Let's pray. God, I give you thanks for the rich history of Southern United Methodist Church. And Lord, you've been with this church through many difficult periods in a century and a half. And as we go through this season that is anything but easy, we know that you're there, that you will order our steps, that you will still our hearts as we try to find the best way this day to share Jesus Christ with people in this county. So, bless this church, its pastor, and all of its people. And we promise, oh God, to give you the honor, glory, and praise that you bring me out of this time. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen. Please have a good day.